What happens when millions of users hit a server at the exact same moment? Why doesn't Netflix crash every time a new season drops? How does Uber survive massive traffic spikes during peak hours?
And how do companies like Amazon and Google defend their systems against bots, spam, and even cyber attacks? Well, the answer is one of the most important concepts in distributed systems and back-end engineering: rate limiting. This is the invisible shield protecting modern internet infrastructure.
And if you're preparing for system design interviews at companies like Meta, Microsoft, or Uber, this is a topic you absolutely cannot ignore. But don't worry, we're not learning this through boring textbook theory. In this explainer, we'll use anime-inspired storytelling, cinematic visuals, and real-world engineering scenarios to make concepts like token bucket, sliding windows, leaky bucket algorithms, burst traffic, and DDoS protection feel incredibly intuitive. You'll see how servers defend themselves like elite anime guardians protecting a kingdom from overwhelming enemy attacks, how traffic spikes can destroy systems in seconds, and how top engineers design infrastructure that remains stable even under internet-scale pressure. By the end of this explainer, you'll not only understand rate limiting deeply, you'll start thinking like a distributed systems engineer.
Section 1. The Invisible Shield.
Let's establish exactly what this defensive mechanism actually is. And notice the absolute strictness of the rule here. Rate limiting is all about setting a hard, unyielding threshold on operations in a service. Just imagine an elite guardian standing at the gates. Let's say you configure your system to allow only 2 requests every 5 seconds. Okay, so the first request zips right through. The second request? Also processed, no problem. But the absolute millisecond that a third request arrives within that exact same 5-second window, boom, the shield goes up. The system returns an error, completely blocking the action until that time window resets.
So you might be wondering, why do we have to be so strict? Well, without this hard threshold, large-scale distributed systems are just entirely vulnerable. If you don't rate limit, bad actors or even just clunky, malicious clients can flood your system with an absolute avalanche of traffic. And what happens then? They completely exhaust your server's resources, ultimately bringing your entire architecture crashing to the ground.
Which brings us to Section 2, surviving the swarm. Because let's face it, the internet is not always a friendly place. A super common attack vector is a DOS attack, a denial of service. This is where a bad actor basically tries to spam your system to death. But honestly, a basic DOS attack from a single machine is actually pretty easy to prevent with the basic rate limiting we just talked about. The real nightmare, though? The swarm.
A DDoS, or distributed denial of service attack, is an entirely different beast. This isn't just one rogue machine. This is a massive botnet. We're talking thousands of different machines flooding your system from various directions all at the exact same time. It is incredibly difficult to block because, well, it's really hard to recognize if these machines are working together maliciously, or if it's just a sudden massive surge of genuine users. And this specific attack vector is devastating. History absolutely proves it. I mean, massive sites like Wikipedia and major gaming networks have literally been taken completely offline by the swarm.
Moving on to Section 3, deploying your defenses. Now that we know the threat, where exactly do we set up our shields? You can't just put a generic blanket wall around your entire architecture. You have to be tactical. Generally speaking, top engineers look at 2 primary deployment strategies to stabilize their infrastructure.
First up, you have user-based rate limiting. This restricts specific users or even entire regions of the globe. For example, imagine you're running a massive social media campaign targeting only your US customers. To keep the site stable, you might rate limit traffic from the rest of the world, prioritizing your US users. On the flip side, server-based rate limiting is totally internal. This protects strongly coupled, highly specific server functions. So if you have a vital server dedicated strictly to processing payments, you strictly rate limit any unrelated requests hitting it. That way, that vital functionality is literally never overwhelmed.
All right, let's get into the technical arsenal. Section 4, the core defense algorithms.
Now that we know where to deploy our defenses, we need to know exactly how they calculate who gets in and who gets blocked. Look, if you are stepping into a system design interview at a FANG company, having a high-level understanding of these 4 specific defense mechanisms is completely non-negotiable. You have to choose your defense strategy carefully based on the exact needs of your system. So, let's break them down. Algorithm number 1 is the fixed window. This is the simplest approach of the bunch. Just imagine a rigid countdown clock. Let's say you allow 10 requests per minute. A request comes in at 12:01 and 45 seconds. It decrements the counter. Simple. But once that counter hits 0, every single new request is completely discarded until that clock strictly resets at 12:02. Now, the fixed window works, but it's pretty rigid, and that brings us to algorithm number 2, the sliding window. Instead of a hard stop and start, this window is a fluid calculation that continuously moves with time. It actually calculates weights based on recent requests to dynamically accept or reject incoming traffic.
Let's look at why this fluid movement is such a big deal. The fixed window has a fatal flaw known in the industry as the boundary burst. Imagine a huge crowd of blocked users just waiting. The exact millisecond that fixed window resets, they all smash the server at once, potentially crushing it. The fluid calculation of the sliding window solves this entirely. Because it continuously moves, it completely eliminates that dangerous boundary burst.
Next up, algorithm number 3. And listen up, because this one is absolutely vital. The token bucket. This is the industry standard. Honestly, the best way to visualize this is going to a movie theater. To get inside the auditorium, every single request needs a ticket.
Here are the exact mechanics of how this plays out in a server. Step 1, you have a bucket that holds a set maximum number of tokens. Step 2, a request arrives, and the system immediately checks the bucket. Step 3, if there's a token inside, the system removes it and the request is successfully forwarded. Step 4, if the bucket is totally empty, the request is immediately dropped. But Step 5 is where the magic happens. The bucket continuously refills with new tokens at a set rate over time. This beautiful mechanism means that if you get a sudden, legitimate burst of traffic, the system can handle it perfectly smoothly, as long as there are tokens available.
Finally, we arrive at algorithm number 4, the leaky bucket. Imagine a water tap flowing into a bucket that has a small hole drilled at the bottom. The water flowing into the top is totally chaotic. Sometimes it's a trickle, sometimes it's a massive blast. But the leak at the bottom ensures the water flows out in a perfectly steady, fixed stream.
In system design, this bucket acts as a fixed-size buffer. When chaotic burst traffic hits your system, say a sudden massive spike of 12 megabytes per second, it's thrown into the bucket. The gateway then leaks or transmits those packets at a constant steady rate, like 2 megabytes per second. It converts variable, unpredictable bursts into a perfect uniform traffic flow. But there is a massive warning here. If that heavy traffic is sustained for way too long, your fixed-size buffer is going to overflow and those packets will be completely dropped.
All right, section 5, mastering the interview. Let's synthesize all of this. What we have here is the architect's synthesis matrix, and you want this to take up your entire mental frame. This is your ultimate cheat sheet. Fixed windows handle bursts pretty poorly and result in clunky traffic flow. Sliding windows, much smoother. But the real stars of the show are the buckets. The token bucket handles bursts excellently with variable traffic flow, while the leaky bucket drops overflow to guarantee perfectly uniform traffic. Understanding these trade-offs inside and out is exactly what interviewers are looking for.
So that's rate limiting, the invisible defense system protecting modern applications from absolute chaos. We explored how companies control massive traffic spikes, prevent abuse, defend against distributed attacks, and keep critical services perfectly alive even when millions of requests flood the system simultaneously. From fixed windows and sliding logs to token bucket and leaky bucket algorithms, these mechanisms are the exact reason scalable systems remain reliable under pressure. And once you truly understand rate limiting, you begin to see it literally everywhere. APIs, login systems, payment gateways, microservices, cloud platforms, and nearly every large-scale distributed architecture on the internet.
This is exactly the kind of engineering knowledge that separates someone who merely writes code from someone who designs resilient systems. If you enjoyed this explainer, make sure to like, subscribe, and share it with anyone learning backend engineering, system design, or distributed systems. Keep studying your matrices, keep designing for scale, and ask yourself, what kind of invisible shield will your next system need? And in the next explainer, we'll break down another powerful architecture concept used inside the world's biggest tech companies.